Situated in the eastern Mediterranean about 70 kilometers south of modern Turkey and 120 kilometers west of the Syrian coast is the island of Cyprus. It's small, extremely scenic, and also has beautiful weather. More importantly, at least for its development during ancient times, it has a plethora of valuable natural resources, especially copper. In fact, the name Cyprus is derived from the Latin word for copper, cuprum. And this, along with its strategic location in the eastern Mediterranean, is what made this little island a prize to be obtained for many ancient kingdoms and empires who dared to establish a presence there. So, let's take a look at the early history of Cyprus. Around the year 3000 BCE, most of the inhabitable islands of the Mediterranean had been settled. Like in other parts of the world, farms were established, and eventually small settlements became cities. Somewhat isolated in the eastern Mediterranean Sea, Cyprus's commercial prospects were limited until it began trading with its neighbors. Though it's not known exactly when, eventually, Cyprus's population became part of the lucrative maritime trade networks that crisscrossed the neighboring seas. All sorts of goods, such as copper, tin, gold, silver, wheat, barley, ceramics, ivory, alabaster, lapis lazuli, precious stones, and a whole host of other items passed through the Mediterranean and surrounding seas. While archaeologists and historians believe that such trade went on since at least the 3rd millennium BCE, the first written accounts of it appear around 1900 BCE in the archives of the city of Mari. Those texts refer to a place called Alasia, sometimes pronounced Alasia. This was the ancient name of the island that we today know as Cyprus. Mention of Alasia also appears in the Egyptian and Hittite texts. For its part, Cyprus, or Alasia, benefited from its large copper reserves, making that metal its largest export, and many locals on the island very wealthy. This was made possible in part due to a new type of longboat that was capable of transporting large quantities of raw materials, as well as several good harbors that the island had in ancient times. These ports were linked to other trading centers such as Ugarit in modern Syria, Byblos and Tyre in Lebanon, ports along the coast of what is today southern Turkey, the Nile Delta, and even locations as far as Sicily and Sardinia. Because Cyprus, or Alasia, was an important center of copper production, it was of great interest to the major regional powers of the time, especially the Egyptians. There have been letters found between the pharaohs of Egypt and the kings of Alasia that seem to indicate a special trading relationship between the two countries. They are part of a larger collection of what we call the Amarna letters, named so because they were found in the archives of Pharaoh Akhenaten at the site of Tel El Amarna in Egypt. Though the Amarna letters are all written in Akkadian, which was the international language of diplomacy during the Bronze Age, the ancient Cypriots actually had a writing system of their own. Scholars call this the Cypro-Minoan script. To date, there have been around 250 items, such as tablets and other objects made of clay, with inscriptions written in this script found not only on Cyprus, but in Ugarit as well. Many scholars debate the ethnic and linguistic composition of Cyprus during the Middle Bronze Age. Some say that the island was actively colonized by Mycenaean Greeks, while others say that this didn't occur and that Mycenaean artifacts found on Cyprus, mostly pottery and various types of metal objects, were brought there through trade. However, we do know that after the Mycenaean collapse around the 12th and 13th century BCE, Greek-speaking communities did inhabit Alasia. Although, whether they were descendants of Mycenaean Greeks or later arrivals from the mainland is still debated by many scholars. Alasia is specifically mentioned in the accounts of Pharaoh Ramesses III as one of the areas that was devastated during the Bronze Age collapse by the so-called Sea Peoples. However, this account is also disputed by those who believe that the destruction of Alasia was minimal. Regardless, by the year 1000 BCE, the the island and its economy seems to have sprung back due to a lot of evidence showing a significant amount of trade between Cyprus and the greater Mediterranean world. The volume of this trade continued and even increased for the next few hundred years, during which several kingdoms are believed to have occupied the island. In fact, the powerful Assyrian king Esarhaddon mentions them in an inscription on an object that we today know as the Esarhaddon prism, calling the island Yadnana, meaning the land in the midst of the sea. He claims that at the time, there were 10 separate kingdoms located there. Known throughout history as arguably the ancient world's most famous seafaring traders, the Phoenicians established trading stations along the southern-eastern coast of Cyprus. Eventually, these would grow into small cities. One of them was Kart Hadasht, called Kition in Greek, and Citium in Latin. For the Greeks, their stronghold on the island was the city of Salamis, not to be confused with the island of the same name near Athens. In 525 BCE, Cyprus became part of the Persian Empire of Cyrus the Great. As subjects of the Persian King of Kings, the Cypriots, both Greek and Phoenician, supplied warships for the empire. However, when the Ionian Greeks along the eastern Aegean revolted in 499 BCE, the Greek population of Cyprus joined them. In the end, the Greek Cypriots were defeated by the Persians in 497 BCE, likely with Phoenician help. From at least that point onward, the Phoenician population proved to be a relatively loyal and reliable ally of the Persians. Around 450 BCE, another revolt against Persian rule, this time led by the famous Athenian commander and statesman Cimon, rocked the island. In fact, it almost succeeded, but unfortunately for the Greek Cypriots, Cimon was killed and the Persians prevailed. After this, Cyprus remained under Persian-Phoenician domination until 332 BCE, when the Macedonian king, Alexander the Great, invaded the lands of the Persian Empire. He allied himself with Cyprus's Greek population, which ultimately contributed 120 warships to attack the Phoenician city of Tyre in one of the bloodiest campaigns of Alexander's War of Conquest. With the defeat of the Persian garrison and their Phoenician allies at Tyre, Cyprus's Greek population willingly submitted to Alexander. However, upon his death, Alexander's general Ptolemy fought for and won the right to rule the island from his new kingdom based in Egypt. It's said that Ptolemy replaced the rulers of all of Cyprus's 10 kingdoms with the exception of one, Nicocreon of Salamis, who supported the Macedonian general from the very beginning. The Ptolemaic dynasty held sway over Cyprus until 58 BCE, when the island was taken over by the Romans. This, though, brings us to a different phase in Cyprus's history, one which we'll examine in other programs. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you learned something. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Looking forward to catching you in the next one. Take care.